So just a quick run through again about the concept of the Peakon Monthly. Thank you for joining. What we usually like to do is to start off sharing some learnings from the HR community that's working with Peakon. We'll then run you through our latest feature releases, and often at the end of the show I'll kind of run through some of the research that we've been using here at Peakon. In this particular episode, I'm not joined by Patrick, I'm joined by our CTO and co-founder Christian.
Hi guys, nice to meet you all. It's extremely warm here in Copenhagen, so if we look a bit sweaty, we are.
Yeah, sorry about that. But here we've got today's agenda. So thanks to being joined by Christian, we're going to have a little discussion around one of the teams that Christian's been running, one of the product teams here at Peakon, what they've been doing to help you, the customers. We're going to go through some of the features that have come out over the last kind of quarter or two, and then some of the things that have been released actually in the last 2 weeks. And then we're going to have a little discussion about where the kind of future direction of Peakon is, and we look forward to taking your questions in particular about that. So firstly, an area of focus that Christian's been working on has been around how Peakon scales to go from, obviously we're a startup growing very quickly, our customer base changes all the time. The next has been enabling people to get kind of more insight with less admin work, and the third has been empowering managers to use the platform. But we're going to focus mostly on the second point here during this webinar. But firstly, kind of, Christian, could you give people an idea of what the challenge has been like scaling Peakon in the last few months?
Absolutely. My team has spent considerable effort over the last couple of months to scale the platform for the future. As you know, Peakon has changed a lot over the years. We started out primarily with small businesses, as you do, to figure out how the product should work and function, and we sort of grown into much larger customers now with tens of thousands of employees. That puts a lot of different demands on the system. Yeah. It's in many ways much simpler to handle a company with 100 employees doing one survey round than handling one that does 50,000. So we spend a lot of effort on making that possible. And as a data point on the growth, we actually doubled the amount of data we have in the platform over the last 4 months. So it's growing quite quickly, and we want to make sure everything keeps working like it should, even through all this growth.
Yes, and I imagine one of the challenges, kind of beyond just keeping the thing running and keeping it running quickly, is that now as our customer base has expanded, it's not that we've just gone for enterprise customers and abandoned other groups, right? We've essentially needed to build a tool that works for SMBs and enterprise customers. What's the kind of main challenge like with that?
I think it's definitely always a challenge to make sure a product is always really easy and enjoyable to use, whether you are a large enterprise or an SMB. I think the standards have changed a lot over the last couple of years. Everyone is used to the experience they have on their iPhone or their Android, using Instagram and other consumer apps where everything is very easy and nice to use. And it's always been the ethos for Peakon that we want to have the same level of user experience when using our product, even if we are quite advanced and complex these days to support all the different requirements. So we spend a lot of effort whenever we design a feature to ensure that it not only fulfills the requirements, but it is also easy to use and easy to understand.
Yeah, and that is really a continuous improvement process, right? I think people they don't really understand how many changes are made to Peakon and how often that is, but could you kind of describe that?
Absolutely. We update the platform typically every other day, so changes are continuously rolling out. Sometimes it's just small bug fixes, other times it's very big changes. It's very, very rare that there's no changes to Peakon within a week. So that happens all the time. One thing we often do is we add some functionality in an area over time, and then we actually go back and redesign the whole thing to make it very easy to understand and sort of incorporate all the new features into a very easy and nicely packaged functionality.
Yes. Great. Well, we're now going to move on to have a look at actually some of those features in particular. The first of these was actually a huge effort to completely redesign how you manage employee data in the platform. Again, this is kind of down to how we're scaling, essentially, isn't it?
Absolutely. Employees are the core of Peakon and the core of any business, really. And the the data we store on employees and the thing you can configure on them and so on has also grown over the years. Yeah. And the old pages we had around managing employee records needed an update. So instead of just doing incremental improvements, we decided to actually rip the whole thing out and rebuild it from scratch. Yes. To make it really nice and easy to use. We had added a lot of features over the years, and we added more still. This is mostly to make management of employees as easy and pain-free as possible, because honestly, it's not something that anyone really enjoys spending time on. So the focus is really on making it very efficient.
And I guess as the amount of records grows, then it becomes a lot more about searching and filtering.
Absolutely. Again, when you have SMBs with 50 to 100 employees, you can sort of just scroll through them all. You don't really need search. If you have 50,000, it's a whole different ballgame. And search becomes essential, and filtering becomes essential. As does many other aspects like bulk updating and importing and exporting and so on. All this has to be suitable for a large number of employees.
Yeah, and on that note, I mean, the next case, obviously we do a lot of work to improve how you can import things through Excel and the customer success processes that come with that, but the real goal is more around integration with other systems.
Absolutely. If you want to have real-time employee feedback and engagement, you also need real-time employee data. And that's hard to achieve with the Excel uploads. At least you would have to do it very often. So we generally try to get all our customers, if possible, on an integration instead. This can be out-of-the-box integration, such as Bamboo HR or Bob. It can also be over integration partners or platforms such as Okta. Yes. Or it can be directly through our API, where we support a standard interface for that many systems today can integrate with. So we can receive all the employee data in real time, so the system is always up to date.
Yeah. So these features have essentially been, I think, a lot around saving a bit of time for admins, but the next part of that in this whole idea that we want HR people to be able to kind of spend less time on admin and more time, where they feel they're generating value, probably comes to some of the later things we're going to look at. The first of which, though, is probably how local or central HR teams can kind of distribute the workload of administering Peakon. Often this kind of comes with businesses that are more decentralized in general, or maybe have subsidiaries where the businesses work in very different ways, essentially, right? And now Peakon is going to be able to, or is able to support that through local admin groups, right?
Yeah, it's hard for some companies to have a one-size-fits-all solution, and it's also equally hard to manage everything centrally. So we have extended the capability of decentralization over the years, and in the last couple of months we added support for managing the schedules in a decentralized way. So the different subsidiaries, departments, divisions, what have you, can give access to set up their own schedules and decide how often they do the surveys and so on.
Right. And next we're going to look at something that I think is a really interesting new insight, or enables a really interesting new insight from Peakon, and that's hierarchical segments. This was, I know, a massive amount of work, but I think it definitely generates a massive amount of value. Essentially now Peakon can map the hierarchies that you have in your organization through the employee data or through the attribute data, and then on the other side how the segmentation is presented to you. But it's actually quite interesting how you even set this up. It's quite unique and quite smart how this is done.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's actually some of the things that took the most time, I would say.
Yeah.
There was a lot of effort going into making this an easy-to-use feature.
Yeah.
Many companies have hundreds or thousands of different segments in their organization hierarchy, and trying to map all those up manually is a huge effort. Yes. And especially as companies are always changing. So even if you do it one day, 3 months from now, you would probably have to at least adjust it again. Yes. So we actually build an algorithm that looks at all your employee data and figure out the hierarchy based on that. Yeah. So you only have to give it a few pointers, saying department is below business division or business unit and so on, and given that little bit of information, it will sort of figure out what the hierarchy is based on all the individual employees and build it out for you. It's hard to say exactly how precise this will be. It will probably vary by company to company, but in general, we expect it to solve it automatically for most companies by far. And if you have a need, you can manually build out this sort of special hierarchies links you have. So that's modeled into Peakon.
Yeah. And then kind of on the other side, when you look at what you can actually get out of this, I mean, I've been kind of helping people look through some of their results in all sorts of different accounts recently. And one of the things this really enables, or for me in these cases, is that you're going from like an extremely high level overview, and then you're just clicking this button and all of a sudden you're dropping down right into subteams and subteams, and then from there you can kind of move on to look at the comments of something, and all of a sudden you've gone from just this really almost abstract score to really like explaining a concrete issue.
Absolutely. I think that's the biggest benefit for me, is that it allows a natural exploration of your data. Peakon has a ton of data, but it also has to be easy to find all the interesting parts. And while we will have suggestions on highlights and priorities and so on, like clicking around in your data and finding all the interesting areas, looking at the comments, seeing the priorities and so on, is really interesting and can really provide insights you would otherwise not be able to easily find. So it really provides a natural way for you to view your data.
Yeah, and if you imagine, if we're just sort of looking at the example that we have on the screen here, you're looking at firstly like an overall office, but then using the hierarchical segments, you can then go down and see the teams essentially in that office, and you're getting this very, it's a sort of Venn diagram of who's working there, really, isn't it?
You can also do it by reporting line, so that's also very often used. So you can start from the very top, if you like, from the CEO, and dive your way down, but level by level, and find out where the pain points really are.
Yes, great. And onto the next feature we have to show you. It's been a very popular request actually over the years. It's sort of continued to crop up, and now we've made it available. And this is the ability to restrict the view of, or to set up attributes, but then restrict the view to the analysis that those attributes provides to a group of people. For example, if it's around something maybe a bit sensitive, like linking engagement to salaries. But what are the other kind of use cases that sort of prompted us to build this one?
I think that there's many different use cases to be found. One example we have on the screen there is bonus and how much another one is commute time and so on. There's many pieces of employee data you can try to analyze against the engagement scores and draw new insights. And that's actually been almost a problem for us, if you will, because Peakon is quite flexible and very general at the whole level. So it's quite easy to add new attributes, upload more data, employee gets new insights, but it also becomes overwhelming at some point. So we actually wanted to try and make the experience simple for managers and allow them to focus on the things that's relevant for them, while enabling HR and senior leadership teams to expand the data or the insights they get from Peakon by uploading more employee data. So that's what restricted attributes enables.
Great. And onto the next one now. Just a sort of simple thing here, perhaps how, especially for HR business partners or admins, if you're looking for, if you want to have a look where your managers have been kind of discussing things and try and find those comments where they've actually been so interesting, it's sort of inspired a discussion between a leader and the employee that gave it. We've now made that essentially simpler. On the comments page, you can now very quickly filter by interactions, which is a small improvement, but I think very handy for a lot of people. We're going to have a look in a second at the even newer features. Firstly, just a reminder that Petros, who's also producing this webinar, puts up a blog post every month, which wraps up all of these and goes into even more detail. Firstly, these were some of the features that kind of came out over the last couple of weeks. Maybe you can kind of run us through.
Absolutely. So I talked earlier about integration and how much we like them. Reality is that the most generic integration that exists today is Excel spreadsheets. So a lot of things still go through that. So we continue to expand on the things you can do to the spreadsheet upload. One thing we added is we can all clear out values. So for example, if you want to remove a certain value for an employee, you can also do it via Excel upload. You can now upload the time zone and language via Excel also. It's quite key that employees get the initial survey email at the right time and in the right language.
Yes.
We don't know that, so you have to tell us. That could be set via the interface before, but now it can also be done via Excel upload. We then, when employees take the survey, we then actually detect where they are specifically and the language they choose to use. So going forward, they sort of have their own choice.
Yeah.
But it's a very good starting point to have the right time zone and the right language.
Yeah, exactly.
Last one is we produced, when you upload an Excel sheet, we produce quite a detailed log of what happened and any errors there were. Previously you could just see that on the screen. Now you get an Excel sheet in return also with the detailed log that you can save for later review by yourself or others.
Yeah. And the next one, this has been quite important. Am I right in thinking this has also been related to GDPR compliance? Or?
Absolutely, that's an aspect of it. As we are growing to be an international company, we need to have support all over the world to enable support around the clock, around the week. We cannot, or we don't want to, I would say, want to do that from Copenhagen or from London. No. We don't want to be up all night. On the flip side, there are also customers that want to ensure that no one from outside their region accesses Peakon, right? So they don't want support from Australia, for example. Yeah. So they can now configure this on their own dashboard and say they don't want anyone from Peakon to support their account if in a certain region or set of regions.
Yeah, makes sense. And the next one, I think this is really, I mean, we're really fans of this this EMPs view, and this sort of even makes our lives a bit easier using Peakon. But
yeah, I think we actually, like, historically we debated a lot what was the right measure to use. Was it ENPS or the average, which we call the engagement score? I think in the end we decided that both are valuable. We have always allowed, or for a long time allowed, admins to configure what their primary score should be. But that setting takes place, is in effect for everyone. But oftentimes you just want to switch back and forth and see what's the engagement score versus the NPS score. So now we have a toggle in the top right on all the dashboard pages where you can switch back and forth and see the scores in both modes just for yourself. So you don't have to go and change the default view for everyone to see it.
And now everybody in the organization can essentially do that.
Yes. Yeah. It applies everywhere to the heat map and to the export and so on.
Okay, and the next has been essentially a sort of improvement to the values product, which is part of the premium plan. Probably the most interesting here is that you can now localize your values. It's one of those things, I think, that when we worked on this product, we were kind of maybe unsure if people even did that as they kind of grew or as organizations got very large, but clearly that's been the case, right? And now we can support that.
It's been a very often requested feature for people using this feature, so we've done that. At the same time, we also added a few other things around values. It's now part of the shared dashboard that you can share with employees or with other parts of the organization, so the values can show up there also. It's also part of the presentation now, so it's easy to also share with employees or other ones that way. So more really about opening up values to more people.
Yeah, great. And just a reminder also about how you can access these webinars going forward and the blog post that I mentioned previously. Now when you open the little intercom icon in the dashboard, you can actually find these links directly there, and that's something that we've just added. So that is the end of our sort of scheduled slides and discussion, but we'd love to hear your thoughts on this now. We've had a couple of questions perhaps over this session. I'll just have a quick read of them. It's a little bit small on our screen.
Better glasses than this.
Yeah. Within the segmentation of attributes, is it possible to create attributes that trigger the score of one segment but not the other? For example, could the attribute of environment that relates to space and noise be set to only affect the office segment rather than the manager segment? I think I see what you mean. So it's essentially, could you only have priorities that are related to, kind of highlighted segments rather than to managers? So
I think, maybe I'm not entirely sure I understand the question, but I think the important thing is you can go to any kind of segment and view their priorities.
Yeah.
So it's really about, if you add new attributes with new segments, you can go to that segment and see what's the priorities from that segment's point of view, if you will. Yes. And that's often how you find out what you need to do about a certain thing. That can be an office, for example. Yes. Would be a natural thing to go to and see, okay, what's actually going on here? It might be an environment is a priority there. But it not be a priority overall, because all the other offices are doing fine.
Yeah, that makes sense. If you restrict access to only a certain region, does that affect a global leader's results that populate?
So I guess this is for the the CSM or for the restricted attributes?
I'm not entirely sure. I'm guessing.
It's for. I would guess it's for restricted attributes. Yes, so you can do this during the normal access control mechanism.
Yeah.
So you can give one set of managers access to restricted attributes and another not.
Yeah.
The only real limitation is that you have to sort of group your attributes into two categories: one that's unrestricted and one that's restricted,
Yeah.
and that's it. And then you can give access to only the unrestricted or all of them. But you can do it on any level you would like.
Yeah. Another question, can Workday integrate with Peakon?
Not out of the box right now, but this is actually on our roadmap and something we would like to do. And we're actually mostly looking for the right customer to partner with on doing the first integration. We are not a big enough company to have a Workday installation ourselves, so we have to do it with someone. And Workday are not very open to doing it with us, so we have to do it through someone.
Right, okay.
So if you're a big company using Workday, get in touch with your CSM.
Let us know. Yeah. That's actually it. That's it. We've run out of time. But thanks everybody, and thanks for watching, and thanks for the questions. Of course, if there's anything you ever see in these webinars, please feel free to reach out to your customer success manager. If you have a little question, for example, about how does something work, how would it work for your account in particular, they would love to show you that. Of course, you can also just reach out to me. My email address is michael@peakon.com, and I'm more than happy to discuss everything that's here. The next broadcast, we're going to be joined by Deepa, who is our head of product here, who's going to talk to us again about some more of the features, maybe some of the features we've discussed in this webinar. Thanks everybody, thanks for watching.
Thank you.